All right, I'd like to call to order the 5th of September 2018 meeting of the Budget and Oversight of Public Elections Committee of the San Francisco Elections Commission. And Secretary Chan, will you call the roll, please?
Yes. Commissioner Roger Donaldson.
Here.
Donaldson present. Commissioner Charles Young.
Here.
Young present. Commissioner Aviva Mogi.
Here.
Mogi present. All are present.
Very good. Item 2, general public comment.
Item 2, general public comment. Public comment on any issue within BOPEC's general jurisdiction that is not covered by another item on this agenda. Mr. Turner?
Yes, just wanted to mention, hopefully everybody's taken a look at what's going on in Los Angeles with their announcement of their new voting system in LA. The Secretary of State also put out a press release stating that it was the first open source system certified in the state of California and proclaiming a great victory there. We're trying to get a look at the code and to see what's really happening because of the way they led up to their unveiling. We are hesitant to believe that it really is an open source system under the definition of open source initiatives definition, but and the fact they're not really, well, they haven't posted the code. So anyway, that's just something to watch and know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 3,
Seeing no further comment, yes, item 3, please.
November 2018 election. Discussion and possible action regarding conduct of the November 6, 2018 consolidated general election.
Great. So, Director Arns, as usual, a thorough plan, so I think that just maybe if you could give us an overview, a little bit of your thoughts about what's different. Of course, we have the things like Prop N voting and things like that. So maybe just your thoughts and some highlights.
Yeah, the implementation of Prop N has many pages in this election plan, so that's certainly something that we put a lot of time into. It's covered, or it's touched pretty much every area of the department, so we've put a lot of time into this since 2016. It hasn't just been in the last few months, but since 2016. And we've essentially created another election that we're conducting in conjunction with the consolidated general election that we would normally hold during this time in the election cycle. So right now, I guess most of the components are together as far as the database, the ballots, the voter guide, the content. The producing of the content is being done now. And now we're entering the phase of ensuring that the poll workers are in line with providing services to non-citizen voters, to remind them to provide the right ballot, to make sure that they're guiding the non-citizens through the elections process at the polling places. Also getting our field support personnel in line with providing support for non-citizens. And we're E60, which is when we can start mailing ballots to overseas voters starts Friday. So we're already starting the election cycle as of Friday. So I mean, we're at the point now where we're going to start printing up ballots and getting the materials prepared for the polling places. We're doing a lot of outreach still with the school district, thanks to Commissioner Mogi's assistance. She's met with our folks at least a couple of times, been in contact, and so she's liaisoning with our office into the school district, to the parents, so we can get information out to the parents of these students to, one, inform them that the opportunity to vote is available, then two, how to vote and to cast a ballot. That's one thing that we have to realize as we go into non-citizen voting is that most of these people have probably ignored all information in relation to elections in San Francisco since they've been here because they didn't participate. So it has to be a very interpersonal type of outreach, probably to engage many of these voters, and that's where working with the school district, getting information out through their channels will be really important, as well as our outreach efforts with a lot of nonprofit groups throughout the city. So We've also added a lot of illustrations and screenshots of materials in this election plan to give a better sense of what we're developing and providing. And so there's a lot of materials here on the non-citizen voters. As far as the rest of the election plan is concerned, there's a lot of content. It's mostly what we've done in the past as far as preparing for elections. There are some other new practices here, some that we've been working on for a while that have come to fruition, like we can process or review vote-by-mail ballots more efficiently now. That's something that's a program we've developed over time through our practices. And then our poll worker unit, we're always trying to think of ways to present information to the poll workers, poll worker recruitment. We're doing a lot of work in the schools with the ambassador program, which has been actually pretty good this time around, which helps us recruit poll workers at the high schools. But the main thing, I guess, the catch the most attention for this election will be the non-citizen voting, which we're very much involved in, and we're not behind anything. We're ready to go pretty much. The ballots will be done tomorrow, so we'll get the ballots to be printed up tomorrow.
Does any of that high school outreach work relate to California voter pre-registration, or were you talking specifically in the context of non-citizen comment?
Well, so the most of the work before now has been with the pre-registration, and then the state added the 2 voter education weeks in the 3rd week of April, 3rd week of September. So that was another component. Now we've got non-citizen voting. The non-citizen voting is a part of what we provide information on in the schools, but mostly it's the pre-registration and also the ambassadors, the high school ambassadors, which are like peers who can explain the voting process, the basics of the voting process, registration to other high school students. The non-citizen, that's more of a separate work with the administration.
I see.
As far as outreach is concerned.
So before that, it was primarily pre-registration.
Yeah.
And just a follow-up question there, I've heard from other jurisdictions that some school districts, either because of lack of knowledge about it or whatever the reason, been less cooperative with respect to cooperating with departments of election. Have you had that experience here in San Francisco?
Not to that extent. Some schools will be more open to inviting us in and to meet with the students and to inform the students about registration and working as a poll worker than other schools. But overall, the school district itself has been great to work with through time since I've been director. The highest percentage of polling places through one organization we have in the city is through the school district, and that's been continuous through time. Mm-hmm. So they've been a great partner with the city and with the Department of Elections. And as far as recruiting poll workers, usually some instructors are less open to it than others. That's really been the issue, not the school district. But now with the voter education weeks in April and September, there's probably been even more awareness within the school district. We've had actually more opportunities to engage with the students than even 3 or 4 years ago. So.
And other than the various places where Prop N is discussed and the updated dates as they relate to the November election, are there any other substantial or material changes in this voting plan?
Not really. We upgraded or refreshed the outreach materials. That takes a lot of effort. I mean, it seems nominal, but it actually takes a lot of effort to go through that to get the artwork, the content. And we also refreshed the ranked choice voting material, so we have a new flyer in there. We did look at other jurisdictions that they have for outreach content with the outreach for ranked choice voting, and so that took a lot. That was in between June and November. So yeah, that was significant. We're working again. We're looking right now with our observer panel, which is more in name than fact, because the observer so by state elections law, the departments of elections are required to have what's called observer panels, and so we're supposed to formally organize or offer or organize groups of people to observe and review the election practices and procedures through an election cycle. But their access is no less than anyone else's. It's not like they get special access because we're rather wide open as it is. So, but what the observer panel does allow is for people to have a more formal interaction with the department. So we set times to meet with them, we calendar specific processes if they want to watch, or we inform them if they tell us they have an interest in the vote by mail signature verification process, then we know going in, we can give them a heads up, hey, so next date we're going to start the verification process, or this is going to happen. So they have probably more of a formal acquaintance with us, more formal, but the actual access to the process is no more, no less than any person would have. So we're putting a lot of time into materials again for this election. Because of June, we had probably over 100 observers during the June cycle down in the department. We probably had 50 at a time down there for the first 10 days post-election day. So we just want to go through what we learned from the June experience, apply it to the November. So that means changing our materials, getting our folks prepared, based on what we experienced in June. So that's taken a lot of time, and it's significant probably compared to what we had from previous elections. Then, like operationally, like we used the parking lot at City College to stage our vehicles that we use on election day. That's not open to us this election. We have to use the Stonestown parking lot because we can't use the parking lot where our warehouse is because the Giants, I think, have that space, and so I think they're going to have a party there or something. I can't remember what. So that space isn't open to us, so we have to go elsewhere. And that's a significant change for us because we have our field election deputies, our district support team. They're all our sheriff's deputies. They all use the vehicles that we rent. We have to prepare the vehicles. We have to get the materials for the election day support in the vehicle, get the ballots in there, set up security, get traffic patterns set. Make sure there's no events that we're conflicting with that are already established. Like at Stonestown, there's a farmer's market every Saturday. It's a huge issue when there's a conflict with us being there and the farmer's market. So yeah, so that's a big deal. It doesn't really come out in the election plan, but that's something that a lot of us are still involved in right now and getting organized.
Questions?
So just on that, so what you mean when you say you're staging there, you're talking about like in a parking lot somewhere, or?
Right. So we get close to 300 vehicles that we rent for an election, and ideally we can stage those vehicles around our warehouse on Pier 48. But the past two, in June and then also for this election, the space around the warehouse is not available to us, so we have to find alternate locations to stage the vehicles. Mm-hmm. And then we have to get the people there and move stuff around. So.
Right. Yeah, that's a lot to do, and I can see how working that around.
It's a challenge in the city.
Yeah. A few other questions I had. One about the, there was mention here of the warnings that are going to go out regarding on Prop N to potential voters in the various outreach materials about the potential for ICE and all of that. How has it gone so far in terms of the registration for these voters?
So registration is slow so far. We have 7 voters who've actually submitted applications to us, registration applications. I expect that to pick up though as we go into the election cycle. I don't know. It's a new program. I think there's a lot of information that's flying around out there that perhaps isn't consistent. So I think once we get more of our materials out, and we'll do a citywide mailer to everyone, we'll include information on non-citizen voting in that citywide material, which probably would draw people into our website and calling the department more. So there might be more word of mouth going on out there with outreach versus people looking to the department for information. So I think, and also I think when the school district, when we can engage the school district's communication processes with the parents, I think that's also going to provide an uptick in number of registrants for school board. Okay.
And so what is going to happen to, I didn't see it here and maybe it was in here, but I was trying to read through the whole thing as quick. as deeply as I could, given its depth. In any case, I didn't see anything about what happens to their records after the election. Are we purging that database?
No. So there's two sources of law that the department can follow to implement Prop N. One is the Charter Amendment, which was passed in November 2016, which essentially changed the definition of voter for Board of Education elections to include certain non-citizens based on the criteria in the Charter Amendment. And then the ordinance that was passed this year in the Municipal Elections Code, which required the notice to the prospective non-citizen voters, and also that the department develop an application and also a list, what do you call it, like a guideline, I can't think of the checklist, that we provide to the voters so that before they register, so they have a second chance of knowing if they qualify to register or not. But other than that, all the election processes will mirror the election processes that are currently applied during elections in San Francisco. So registration information, for instance, we essentially never destroy it now because it's digital. In the old days, you could destroy, I think it was like 100 years. Like you could have to keep it for 100 years. Then it got winnowed down to, I think you had to maintain the registration card for 5 years after it was scanned. I don't know what, now I don't even know what the law is because we scan everything, so it's digital. And we never destroy it. We never destroy registration information. We don't destroy any voting history. And the same thing currently applies to this set of voters. What's different, though, is with non-citizen voters in school board elections, they have to apply before every Board of Education election. So the registration doesn't carry forward through time. So, you know, potentially the city can pass an ordinance that would require the destruction of registration information, but we have no guidance to do so. And so we're going to mirror, as I said, the procedures and the requirements for conducting elections generally to non-citizen voters for education elections.
And just, yeah, if I were one of those voters, I would be reassured if I knew my information was going to be removed after I voted, after some period of time.
So that's in the charter, to have to register.
Yeah, that's in the ordinance.
In the ordinance,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, yeah.
Okay. And yeah, and I can imagine that this is going to be, it's going to be an interesting, in the precincts, having to run a table with both of these. Can non-citizen voters vote provisionally? Is there a provisional just for the school board as well?
Yeah. So that's really the impact of Prop N. Everything that we do for what we call regular voters, we're providing and is available to Prop N voters. So they can vote by mail. We have our website. They can track their vote by mail ballot. They can apply for a ballot, to vote by mail ballot on our website. They can vote a provisional ballot. They'll get the receipt that's on the provisional envelopes. They can call us after 40 days after election and determine if we counted their provisional, although they can track that also on our website. So every service that we provide to regular voters, we're providing to Prop N voters. So again, we had to create we have to use a separate database because the local databases in each county are now tied to a statewide network of registration databases. And of course, a criteria to register to vote in California is being a citizen. So no, we cannot enter any non-citizens information into the local database, which would connect to the statewide network, because they're not citizens. The statewide system would not accept those people as being voters. So we had to create a separate database. And it's not a matter of just creating a table with a few rows and columns. We had a way to replicate all the features of a registration database and then input the non-citizen information. And then also we had to create like unique affidavit numbers because the registration system, dispensing vote by mail ballots, tracking voting history, assigning polling places, are based off affidavit numbers and voter ID numbers. So if we didn't have if we didn't create an affidavit number, if we didn't create a unique voter ID number, then the system wouldn't send them a ballot, for instance. It wouldn't assign them a polling place. So So yeah, so everything that is available to a regular voter, we're going to provide to the non-citizen voters.
Well, it's a lot of, and how did you do it on the budget? Because I remember back in the budget cycle, is it kind of close, or
Yeah,
is it a lot more? Or?
Yeah, it's, yeah, 160 was the number, and so yes, we went around 160.
And I think the school board is paying that, right? Or
According to
some
the city, yes.
Okay.
So.
Yes, so I'm sure you that your liaison to the school board can also carry that message.
Yeah, interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, would you mind if I ask one follow-up question
Please.
on that? So only 7 non-citizens have registered. I was wondering if you had a sense or any feedback from non-citizens or others that you know, the reasons why you know, why more haven't, and you know, maybe relatedly, you know, is what would keep ICE from subpoenaing your records?
So to answer the first question, I don't know. I don't know what would stop or halt people from registering to vote. Maybe they're just waiting. Maybe they don't. Maybe we're at the. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But as far as ICE obtaining the information, there's no need to even subpoena the department to obtain the information, because under California elections law, even though your registration information is confidential, there are exceptions that allow us to release that information. And other government agencies is one of those exceptions. So the ICE could potentially submit an application for registration information under the California Elections Code, and we would provide potentially the registration information for non-citizen voters. Now, if we found a reason to not provide under the California Elections Code, then yeah, the federal government could come in and submit a subpoena, and then we would be compelled to provide the information to them. So, but it may not require a subpoena actually to get the information.
And San Francisco's sanctuary city law or policy that wouldn't prohibit it.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions?
Yeah, I just had just a question on the organizational structure and staffing. So, is this the usual the plan to hire and train the additional seasonal staff? Is that pretty comparable to your previous November elections?
It's a bit higher for November because we expect a larger turnout.
So, but from your previous November election?
It won't be as high, 'cause that was a presidential. Our last,
Okay,
so it'll be something more than June, and something less than November 2016. It's in the plan. So we are expanding the voting center a bit more. So we're gonna add like, I think 10 more people or so to the voting center. That's probably even a bit more, because we were talking about that today, of having more monitors out there. But the monitors aren't really, we need them. But otherwise, staffing would be very similar to what we had for June, a bit higher, but not as high as November 2016.
okay.
Other questions? I think just a last comment or a couple of things. I see that there was a lot invested in the materials and in when I acknowledge the insert mailer for with the mailer for clarity and flow and encouraging following ballots. I think that's great for voter engagement. And we did use this remote accessible voting in the last election, correct? Okay, so it sounds like there's some lessons learned there that were incorporated in some streamlining of materials and things.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I like the outreach, your city, your choice, and so it's great to have a theme. And the materials look very very up to date, very modern. So looks very good.
Some talented people.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a question on this. I think it was in the student recruitment material. Something about changing it to SurveyMonkey and all that stuff. Is that new?
No, you used SurveyMonkey before.
Maybe I was reading it.
Maybe not for the high school students, but like for the poll workers we have in the past.
Okay, I thought that was something new.
The students, I don't know actually, but it might be for the students, but we've used it before.
Okay, yeah, I think I read something that's like a newer thing, so I was just curious to see if that was anything that's just different. Okay.
And I guess just one, I did think of one other thing. Polling places and recruitment, how
Polling places, we have 583 sites to secure for this election.
okay.
And I think we have all but about 20, actually, which is really good at this point. And as far as poll workers are concerned, we're just now really hitting into that cycle. I don't know if they've sent out their confirmation letters yet or not. But yes, that's all be happening within the next week, 2 weeks. We're starting to put the push. We just brought our recruitment coordinators in the office on Tuesday, yesterday. So I don't think they've done any formal assignment of polling place or precincts yet to inspectors.
Okay, just enough advance time. Okay, very good. Let's see. I guess do I have any motion on the election plan? Normally we would recommend to or not recommend to the election commission pass a recommendation on approval of the election plan.
I move that we recommend to the Elections Commission that the Elections Commission adopt the election plan for the November 6, 2018 consolidated general election dated August 31, 2018.
Second.
Hearing second. Public comment.
Yes,
Excuse me?
Was Commissioner Mogi second?
Yes, I was.
Whispering here.
Yes, Brent Turner with California Association of Voting Officials. Just wanted to make a couple clarifications on the plan. The line at the first paragraph under subsection 9, logic and accuracy testing, it says the testing verifies that the specific ballot information is correct, checks the performance of the vote tabulating equipment, and ensures that the equipment properly records and accurately tabulates all votes. Just to note that is an impossibility. The problem with these systems is we have no ability to ensure the accuracy, that it's accurately tabulating the votes. That's the reason why we're moving toward open source systems, is that line right there. Although it's a good thought, I just wanted noted that it's not truthful, because it says the testing verifies and ensures that the equipment properly records and accurately tabulates the votes, and that's not possible with the private software to the system. The other,
What page are you on?
Yeah, what
I'm
page are
sorry,
you
I'm on page 39 of 60, it's subsection 9, Roman, and under the first paragraph that follows, logic and accuracy testing of voting equipment.
I mean subsection 14.
Am I on the right plan?
No. Are you talking about subsection 14 on page
XIV
39?
is 14, yes? Is that right?
It says election plan, Friday, August 31st.
Yes.
Yeah.
Am I on the right?
Yeah, but you're talking about Roman 4. You're
XIV.
Oh, I'm sorry,
14.
14,
Yes.
I said, what did I say?
9.
9, thank you.
Which paragraph are you talking about?
First one. Correct, 14, that's right. So I just wanted that noted, that the COSO objects to that being represented as truthful, because we know scientifically it is not. And the other point that I wanted to make was, at the end, on the next page, 40 of 60, under, looks like subsection B of number 14, it says, under testing, it says, the last line, the tests are conducted by the voting system vendor Dominion using a set of test ballots overseen by department staff to, again, the word ensure that the machines are processing the vote by mail and other ballots accurately. Again, same objection to the last line. That's again why we're hoping to move away from these proprietary systems, because there can't be any appropriate level of ensuring that we're doing that accurately. And then finally, with this report, we just want to make a general point that we don't appreciate the 1% manual tally as the best post-election audit, and I think we could have that conversation, but just for the record, just to put it on the record. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm sorry, with the end of paragraph 1, what was the other one?
The end of paragraph 1.
Or it was paragraph 1.
I'm sorry, so yes, under 14.
Yeah.
And then the following one was on the next page, page 40, at the very last line on the page. It starts off with, the tests are conducted by the voting system vendor Dominion using a set of test ballots overseen to ensure. I guess that language is a little better, because that says that the tests are hypothetically to ensure that the machines are doing what they're supposed to. So that's really not that problematic. The first line that I cited, where it says the testing verifies and checks the performance and ensures, that is not appropriate language, as it's representing something that is not correct. And so that's really the main thing that I see in this report. Other than that, it looks like a fine report.
As I read this, the testing verifies the specific ballot information for each precinct is correct. I assume this means every ballot style is run through to make sure they are recording correctly.
So every precinct has, the equipment that goes out every precinct has the test deck which is a set of the actual content of the ballot, which would be the ballot type for that precinct run through. And there's a script that predicts the result that the machine must provide once after the test decks are run through. We compare the results report from the equipment to that script, and that's how we match to know that the equipment is tabulating appropriately.
It's just because it says and ensures that the equipment properly records and accurately tabulates all votes. That might be true in that minute, but as Chair Donaldson will know, it is not possible to make that representation in the real event. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if it would make any difference, but at least parallel language would say, and other ballots accurately, as it does at for the 400C, ensures that equipment properly records and accurately tabulates ballots. Would that, I don't know, does that make any difference? It seems.
But wouldn't that impossibility, if it's true that it's impossible, wouldn't that impossibility also exist with respect to open source? Right? Isn't that just a feature of relying on machines?
Sure.
And what's knowable by human beings?
And in that moment it works, and tomorrow it might not.
Yeah, no, we're just talking about.
It's really the insurers, I think, is the.
Yeah, I mean, we're just talking about, reducing some risks, right? I mean, isn't that? I'm just not sure that that objection is really resolved by the move towards open source. So it's not clear that follows to me. Sure. I mean, I certainly understand, using a word like ensure why that might draw an objection, but anyway, it's just not clear to me that logically follows.
Director Armstrong, do you have any objection to changing ensures to provide assurance that equipment is properly and accurately?
think the statement's wrong.
Which?
The
Insured?
insured, I think it's accurate. So I don't think it's wrong, so I don't want to change it.
I guess the point is that there's it may work in that moment, but it might not later, and insures matter that much. I get the point. Thank you, Mr. Turner. But I think perhaps in the future we can think of some other. Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. Secretary Chan?
Okay. President Donaldson?
Yes.
Donaldson, yes. Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Jones, yes. Vice President Mogi?
Yes.
Mogi, yes. You have unanimous 3-0. Motion passes.
Thank you. We also have a waiver for allowing city's employees to assist in the election, November 6th election. This is something else that would be referred to the full commission for approval and recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Director Arntz, any comments on this waiver? Is it different than any in the past?
So the charter prohibits city employees from assisting the department in conducting elections. If the department cannot fully staff to conduct an election, we have to seek a waiver from the Board of Supervisors, which first would go through the Elections Commission. So for this election, November 2018, we will be able to fully staff all aspects of conducting the election, except for the accepting or the obtaining of the memory devices from the polling places that are delivered by the parking control officers to the McAllister entrance of City Hall. We have a group of about 10 people from other departments who are tech savvy, who are comfortable with the process. Most of them work with us from election to election. So we'd like to maintain that instead of trying to bring in people that we don't know to handle this equipment to capture the results from the polling places on election night. So that's the purpose of the waiver.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Secretary Chan, call the roll.
President Donaldson?
Yes.
Donaldson, yes. Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Jones, yes. Vice President Mogi?
Yes.
Mogi, yes. Motion passes unanimously.
Very good. Next item, please.
Item 4, open source voting. Discussion and possible action regarding the City and County of San Francisco's open source voting system project.
I have a question on item 3. This was just informational and additional, just the key dates and deadlines. That's just another.
It's part of the plan.
Oh, this
Yeah.
the waiver, or just part of the plan?
This is part of the plan.
Oh, I guess it was just.
This is separate.
Yeah, I just asked to have, I put just the dates. I pulled it down off the website.
Oh, okay.
Added
Oh, you
it
just
to
had-
it.
oh, okay.
Just because I'm always find myself asking
Well, because
questions.
this, the plan's here.
Right.
And then you added this one?
I added this
Oh,
one, yes,
okay.
because I pulled it down, I sent it to Don.
Got it.
I know what that is.
Not-
I don't know what, is this from the website? You
Yes.
just- Yeah, you just pulled it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I thought this one we had to discuss or just.
Yeah, this one's much more detailed, the one that's in the plan.
Yeah. That's just key deadline. Okay.
Yeah, this is just
I was-
informational.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay. All right, on the open source project. So included in the materials, I've just put the job post. Certainly, if anyone, members of the public, members of the commission, Director of Elections, have any ideas on people that might want to apply for this position, we would encourage you to send this widely so that we have good applicants for this role. I will say that when we talked about this before, and I know you were just doing it off the top of your head, Director Arntz, but you'd mentioned something around 180K, and 163 is, it's not an insignificant salary, but it is San Francisco. It's only a 2-year job, and we're asking for an awful lot of qualifications. So some concerns about if we're going to get qualified applicants, but in any case, I guess that was, it is the 5504, however. I've noted that it is the job position that you had mentioned before. Other than that, I know this is Director Jarul's post. Do you know if there's any applicants for this yet of significance, or will we not know until we close the?
I don't know. I don't know, and I don't know if there's any rules around discussing like the number of applicants or not. Actually, I don't know. I'll just bring this. I never even thought about that until I walked in this meeting. I did send her a email asking if there's any update. I didn't get a reply.
Yeah, and
I saw. Yeah, I saw yours. So no, I don't have anything from Director Jarrell at this point.
Okay. All right. Anyway, we will hope for the best. I think that the qualification things are great. Just in Silicon Valley and living in San Francisco, we'll see if we can. Hopefully somebody is doing this. Not this is decent pay, but hopefully they're doing it because they really want to, and we'll get somebody who's
Great public service.
Yes, exactly. Great public servant and service. The other question I had, Director Arntz, was that there was a $960K in the budget for the election project, open source election project, and that was in the final budget. Wanted to understand there, and I guess there's $300K of COIT money. That is what is funding this project manager. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know if there's specific dollars assigned to the project managers, because there's 125 that was left over from the 300,000 from 17-18. Is that right? 17-18 fiscal year. COIT added another 300,000, so that was 425 of COIT money, which the 125 carried forward. So for 18-19, there's 425 of COIT money.
Okay.
And then the board added, and during add back, I forget the numbers, like 1.3, something like that, 1.4.
Over two fiscal years.
2 fiscal years.
Yeah.
And I think 900,000.
About 960.
Okay.
956.
Yeah. So whatever those numbers are, what would be, I guess, what would be available this fiscal year, and then, but again, I don't know why if you could pull from the second fiscal year too. I don't know why that would be possible. And then anything that would be left over from this current fiscal year would carry forward. So I didn't really look at it as like a specific assignment of dollars from a specific action that would be for the project manager. But I just look at that pool of money, what's available, and how this cost for the project manager would pencil out.
Okay. And so is there any stipulation around that 960,000 and how it's to be spent?
No, it's not to my knowledge. It's all part of any efforts to develop an open source voting system. So.
And is that to be, because it's in the department's budget, does that mean you allocate it to certain things?
Well, it's a program budget. It's not.
Okay.
It's an odd thing. So it's called a programmatic allocation. So it's not in our general fund budget. There's a program the city has developed, has assigned. So the city has an open source voting system project, and so the funds are a programmatic budget item that would go to this open source voting system project. However, the Department of Elections has, at least we do, I don't know if anyone else does, has the ability to expend those funds. So like with the project manager, we send the money over to DT to fund the project manager. Then if there's going to be an RFP, then I'd be the one signing a piece of paper to release the funds to pay for any kind of service under a RFP. So it's not in our general fund budget, but it's a program that's attached to the
So it has to be spent on something related to open source voting,
right,
programmatically.
Right. So like I could not use that money for temporary staffing. If I wanted more temporary staff, I couldn't grab that money and use it for something else.
Got it. And now you mentioned the 425, and then there was the 960 I saw in the reg budget for this item. So is the 425K separate, or is that inclusive?
It's separate. It's a separate allocation, and I don't know if the 125 is showing up in the programmatic budget or not actually, because I don't think Director Jarrell saw it when she was drafting the job description for the project manager. But I think it all goes into the same pile. I think it's all altogether.
What's that? How do you find that out?
I haven't looked at that in several weeks. I'll have to look and get back to you. I hadn't looked since 3 weeks since that was posted, so I don't know. It might have, because even though the fiscal year is from July 1st to June 30th,
Yeah.
money doesn't actually get moved into a lot of accounts until September, October.
Sure.
So even though the 125 existed from the previous fiscal year, it may not actually show up until October the next fiscal year. So
Is it? But 425 is a big swing if it's inclusive or exclusive, right? It's about half of the money.
right.
So.
Well, I think the 300 is there. I think the 300 is there for this fiscal year.
Right.
I don't think I saw the 125 several weeks ago. And I don't know. And I don't think the add back the board allocated got moved into any account yet. I think that's still on paper. I don't think I actually allocated to an account.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Yeah, because my understanding was that this fiscal is a total of 1255. So that would be the 300 plus the 955 or 56 or whatever it was. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. If you could provide us some more details on that at the full election commission. Commissioners, any other questions on this item? Members of the public, any comment?
Yes. Just wanted to note that it would be great to have a real clear picture of the available funds, so we'll look forward to that. And also that we're still concerned about the project going to the Department of Technology without any public ability to or involvement at that point. So we're trying to understand as the public, if the project is with the Department of Technology, does that allow any oversight through the Elections Commission? Will public comment or opinion be relayed from the Elections Commission? My understanding is the Department of Technology doesn't have a method for community involvement. So that is just something that we're looking at, and we're very hopeful that we can expedite this, as I think the entire country now is reeling from this issue of possibly tampered elections. And I think as the daily news continues to compound upon itself on this issue, hopefully we're responding with adequate duty to our county, our state, our country to move this project forward as expeditiously as possible before the suffering exponentializes. Thank you.
Thank you. I will just mention that we have had Commissioner Jurdonic and I did meet with Director Arntz and with Director Jurl, and we had assurance about working with us and coming and providing insight into process and project. However, we are very much relying on that word, but I don't see any reason that she wouldn't keep that, and she was quite aware of the project even at that time, and had thought about it when we went in. It wasn't like it was something she had to pull out a bunch of papers and remind herself about. So she does seem to have genuine interest in it. However, I think that it is also I and other commissioners also have a concern that it's very dependent on individuals, and that individuals can change, and so that we do want to make sure that that this project move forward in a way that's going to assure success. So I think that we have a reassurance as of the moment that everybody's pulling that same direction, but we're in early stages. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Next item.
Item 5, excuse me, item 5. Approval of minutes of previous meeting. Discussion and possible action to approve minutes for the July 13th, 2018, I'm sorry, that's a typo, 2018 BOPEC meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Any members of the public? Seeing none, would you call the roll? Secretary
Yes.
Chan.
Commissioner Donaldson?
Yes.
Donaldson, yes. Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Young, yes. Commissioner Mogi?
Yes.
Mogi, yes. Motion passes unanimously.
Very good. And next item.
Item 6, agenda items for future meeting. Discussion and possible action regarding items for future agendas.
So I don't know that this needs to be an agenda item, but I do want to point out that I'm both president and chair of this committee, which I don't think is good practice. So I will be looking to have somebody else take that role. If one of the commissioners here would like to do that, or if we have a third commissioner that would like to take one of the 3 seats, that would be great. But
I'm looking at Commissioner Mogi
I
too.
know, I'm looking at you, actually, to chair the committee. I was like, you stared right at me, I was like, what is happening?
so if anybody wishes to volunteer, they may at any time.
I nominate Commissioner Mogi.
It's not on the agenda, we can't do that.
Yeah, we'll do it next. Well, we should have it as I guess next, we should discuss that, it's really not.
Yeah.
Because I would rather have you stay president for the actual commission, so.
Okay. Anyway, I think that's just one item. I don't even know that we need to put it on the, anyways, I'll talk with our parliamentarian about, Secretary Chan, about what the proper process would be for that in the meantime, but I just wanted to point that out. Does anyone have anything else they would like to see on future meetings? Very good.
Do we have any, for this committee, we don't have any like scheduling conflicts from now until the end of the calendar year, right?
Around any holidays? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
Not that
For
I
this
know
one.
of.
okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. So, and we call the meetings basically as needed. And then certain things, obviously, coming up to elections and looking at the budget, those are certainly clear things that we have these meetings for. So I would anticipate one definitely after the election in November.
But not the day, it's the day after election, if you do list it.
I'm sorry, December.
In December, okay, so
Yeah.
you wouldn't assume, like, we can assume that we're not gonna do one in the day after election day? That's a little.
Unlikely.
I won't be here.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that's a
You'll
little-
probably be a little busy.
Yeah,
There may
so-
be other reasons to have a meeting, but I'm saying that
For now.
at least I would anticipate that the first one, the one that we for sure would next have would be in early December.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay. And with that, do we have to take public comment on this? I guess so. Seeing none, however. Meeting adjourned at 6:53.